Welcome to whatever this is called, the podcast that spreads faster than a rage virus in a monkey sanctuary. I'm Scott Taylor, and this here, as always, is Mr. Steven Garcia. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I don't have a quip, man. I wish I did, but I'm doing okay. How about you, Scott? How are you doing?
I'm just sitting here ready to execute Code Red. Mountain Dew Code Red, the sponsor of this episode. Hey, are you thirsty? No, we're not sponsored at all. It's just went with Code Red, which is in line with what we're talking about today, which is breaking down the 28 Days, Weeks, Years Later trilogy at this point, though it will be more than a trilogy. Possibly the most effective piece of horror ever created by just being kind of believable. These aren't your slow, lumbering corpses. This is infection horror. People get mad fast, and everything goes to hell. Plus, the first one has the guy that played Scarecrow in it, so it's got that going for it. Steve, how do you feel about action horror? Are you into the chaos and explosions, or do you prefer your horror with more crying and metaphors?
I like it a little. I like the gore. I like it a little. The action. It just depends, I suppose. I mean, it depends on how it's presented. I like my horror kind of gory and dark and in the shadows, that kind of thing. Or something that's really kind of just in what the wide open, but it's you can't see it or something. You know what I mean? Like something like that. As far as the action, I think they did it cool with these movies. This was the kind of like the first movies that I've seen that kind of employs. Yeah, so I think it's okay. It's cool. How about you? Are you a big fan of that?
I fall back to the slower, drawn-out type of horror, right?
Yeah.
That's more my speed and my forte. I do think this is its own kind of genre with action horror, at least for the first two that we're talking about. So before we get started on all of it, let's just clarify: these aren't zombies movies, right? They're infection movies. It's a different class. There's no rising from the grave, no brain munching, just rage, blood, and people sprinting at you like their Uber is being, getting pulled away. And they're like, no, I'm here. Zombie movies, you've got people being raised from their corpse. You've got Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, the Romero slow zombies.
Yeah.
You've got Walking Dead, which is classic undead. You have...
And then the people at Walmart. Just kidding.
You got Resident Evil, you got full death there, then reanimation, plus they have some sort of mutations going on. World War Z, you've got infected and they reanimate as fast zombies. Zombieland, great movie, fast zombies. And then Army of the Dead was very similar to what I liken to the action horror genre. It was a Netflix
that's true,
movie, right? It's like some zombies are smart, some are fast, but they're all dead. So those are zombie movies. This is an infection movie we're talking about, not like Contagion infection movie, but like Train to Busan is more of an infection movie than a reanimation movie, I feel like.
I never saw that.
Yeah, Train to Busan, it's really good. You should check that out. I believe it's on Netflix now.
Okay.
The Crazies, which was a remake in 2010 with Timothy Olyphant. That was a remake of a 1973 movie, The Crazies. Okay. But that was, local, originally the water system getting poisoned, and then people would either die from it or just go crazy from it. And then there was an Australian film called Cargo in 2017. And it was a very slow transition from infection to the point where you turn. And it was about...
So it was a longer period where they could still be... They're like, oh, I could feel it, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the dread is there, and in this one, he has a young child with him, his child, and so he's trying to find somewhere to kind of pass off the child to, so the child's safe, while he knows he's been bit, and he's going to turn at some point and going to change. So is fast and angry scarier than slow and stupid? What do you think?
I think so. I think, especially watching 28 Days Later. And the way they filmed it too, with the cameras they used, you're not seeing them clearly. I think there's a point in that movie where when he first kind of comes face to face and he's not sure what they're doing or who they are, and they're running at him like full speed, and he's just like, I think that ups the creep factor a lot for me, anyways. Yeah.
I agree. There will be spoilers in the talk here about the most recent movie, so feel free to pause this and come back to it after you see it. But a big part of the newer movie is kind of that speed, like them running at you. And if you have a clown running at you, like picture you're there and a clown is running at you, just screaming at you, right? That's pretty scary. But if it's a hulking naked dude that's dirty screaming at you, that is the scariest thing I can picture.
With a third leg coming at you.
With a Pringles can swinging down below, right? It's like a baby's arm holding an apple, right? And they're running full speed at you, drooling, dirty, disheveled. That's scary. Like you can I'll take a million slow walking zombies compared to just one dude like that.
And it's funny too, because when you have the movies with the slow walking zombies, they have to compensate in some way for them to not be able just to go, oh, I'm out of here. So they have to trip over something, or they got to turn around and someone's, someone else is there. They have to like really kind of work with that. I think also what brings the more reality is that, when these guys are flying towards you, you just have to run. There's no time to like, I got back up and, trip on something. You just have to kind of turn around and go, which I think in the newer movie here, they do that a couple times, but they don't trip or anything, but it's definitely, creepy. It's very creepy. So
if you can get just far enough away, or you can, get behind something, in these movies, it's like they can burst through drywall, right? Drywall's no stop to them, but old school zombies, they might wear through it over time, but it's going to take them a little bit of time. You're safe. You can breathe. You can cook a can of beans or something and fuel up. It reminds me of Austin Powers and the steamroller and the guy going, no, like that slow moving zombies. You're just move, dummy.
Well, I think at the beginning of Night of the Living Dead, when it takes place in the cemetery, there's a lot of that. Hey, whoa. Ow, and then they trip over a grave or a headstone or whatever it was. And
if they know them, it's even worse. They're like, Carla, no, oh, what happened to you? And dialoguing while they just shamble towards them.
Yeah. And the back of their suits all, because they only dress the front. So the back, they're all naked. And it's funny.
It's all part of the infection part of it, right? Because, if you are undead, you can only shamble, right? You don't have anything going through. That's all you can do. And that's why I don't like when it's a fast zombie movie, but I can understand a fast infection because it's living tissue. The body is still moving. They can run as fast as humanly possible. And in this series, it's meant to be that they started off with the Ebola virus and then added in a rage element to it in the attempt to cure anger. Yeah. They had to create anger in order to cure it, apparently. And so that makes sense to me, that you've got these people running full speed. And they even say in the first movie that, how long it takes them to kind of die out from starving. And they kind of build upon that in the most recent one, which is what I like. I like when they create a universe that has rules to it. And I feel like that's something they did really well with moving into this third movie.
Yeah, I was telling Scott before this, I have to go by memory for the first one, but I think there was a lot of things in the new movie that I would have benefited for me from watching that first one, because I did watch the second one and kind of deducted that they kind of, and from hearing interviews too, that they've kind of retconned this universe for the third one. And so there's a lot of questions I have about the second one, and we'll get into that when we start talking about it. But yeah, it was kind of like I said, I have to go through memory, so I don't really remember a lot of the callbacks, but I have Scott here to remind me, so this is all good.
Yeah, let's talk about the first one a little bit.
Okay.
So, just based on your recall, since you didn't rewatch it, tell me what you think. Do you think is 28 Daves too many? Would 26 Daves be better, or
no? It's days. Days.
Oh,
not Daves. No,
I prepared completely wrong then. I am not ready for this. Okay, fine. It's 28 days later. It kicked off the whole infected universe. You got Cillian Murphy. You got camcorders. Zero Chill. He wakes up 28 days after this has all started. He's been in a coma. He was like a bike courier and had some brain issues going on there. It opens up very similarly to The Walking Dead pilot.
Yeah.
He's in a bed. He's naked again. should be called 28 Dongs Later because that's all there is. And he wakes up naked in a bed. That was my first question. Like, why is he naked? I've never seen someone just lying in a hospital bed naked. Maybe he had a sheet over him at some point and someone pulled it off. I don't know. Some curious nurse or orderly walking by is like, well, if I'm leaving anyways, I'm not working here anymore. Let's take a look at the goods. So he wakes up. He then stumbles outside. Great cinematography out there with, the streets just being empty, disheveled but empty.
Yeah, it has that closed circuit camera quality to it because, like you said, they shot on mini DV, which that's what I shot on in film schools. We started off. I was the last class of mine that shot on film everything. So they were slowly transitioning to digital, and this is the Canon XL1 that they shot on, which we shot on too. And it's interesting because it gives it that kind of rawness too. And I remember watching the first one that, when he's at the beginning, when he's walking around in the streets and everything, it was really cool. It was a really cool effect because it kind of almost puts you in that spot because of the lo-fi quality of the shot or the camera. I think the thing that doesn't hold up well is the camera because I think I was listening to a couple of interviews now, and there's this one guy that talks about how it's presented on his TVs nowadays, and it's just kind of stuck in that format, so it really does not look good in the new TV screens. Have you heard anything about that, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to watch as far as that goes. And I know my daughter has trouble watching older movies just because of the quality of them and the visual quality of them, and it doesn't draw her in. She's not willing to give things time to build the story and see the acting and everything in it. So I do see that as a long-term kind of rewatchability problem with it. But during its time, it was
it's still great. It's still a great story. Yeah.
So he wakes up, he sees this thing, he starts to meet with other survivors, learn what's going on, learns that they're all fast, ultimately meets up with Donald Gleason and his daughter, right?
Was it Brendan Gleason or Donald?
Oh, Brendan Gleason. Why am I going Donald? I'm thinking Donald Logue. They look very similar at times in their different lives. So he's with his daughter, and they... now there's 4 of them together, and they're like, we heard this recording. We're going to go to find this recording that says that, the salvation and we can be saved and all this stuff. So they leave. They hop in his little taxi. They take off. They stop at a grocery store, which is one of my questions about that movie, that the grocery store is just fully stocked. No broken windows, nothing like that. Like, I don't know if that's a British thing where like they'd be too polite to not break in and loot it. Because I know here in the U.S., 1 hour within the first hour, it'd be just smashed, and food would still be there, but the TVs and electronics would all be gone.
Bit rude, isn't it? Yeah.
So they get food. They then go find this place that's headed by the military, what you think is the military, but then it turns out it's just a very small sect of military. Yeah. Small group of guys where the leader promised the men women. They were going crazy. They were thinking, what's this all for? And he promised that there would be women to repopulate the earth. And so that ends. There's a battle there where Cillian Murphy kind of becomes like one of the infected, right? The way he's moving around and the way it's shot to take out these military men to save his 2 friends. Yeah. So that's kind of how it ends. He saves them. They're off. They see an airplane flying overhead. He sees an airplane flying overhead. And he goes,
that's what I remember.
This isn't like this everywhere. Like clearly there's an airplane way up there, and that's not a military helicopter flying low or anything. That's just an airplane. So at the end they're signaling for an airplane that comes by. Military airplane frequently, and you don't see what happens, but you assume that the airplane saw them. And that's kind of where it ends. And
that's
I think
what
it goes,
I remember.
Might go a little bit more into it in the comic book because they did do a graphic novel. But that's 28 days, 28 weeks. Very exciting premise, right? You're getting back to this environment, bigger budget, bigger explosions. You got Robert Carlyle just running through every bad decision possible.
Dare I say that this movie suffers from the same effect as in T2? Boom.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little more big budget, but just because you have a bigger budget doesn't really necessarily mean that it's a very compelling story. That's what I kind of came across with this one. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're spot on. It's like, let's take the stuff that really worked and let's, not explosively, but let's blow it up and expand, it bigger just because we have the budget to and not because it's necessarily better.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell, I mean, I did kind of a little bit of a deep dive on this. And, from what I gather is that they wanted it to kind of expand and they wanted a broader reach with this franchise. So you bring the Americans into it, you lose the kind of inclusivity of it just being England and Great Britain or whatever. And then, you kind of make this story, like you said, of this man who's just basically, I don't know. I think I probably, I probably would have stayed, I guess, because if it's my wife, I would have actually probably tried to, I'll fight till, I'm going to go down fighting, so.
I looked at my wife and I said, I completely understand why he made that decision. And she was sitting right next to me on the couch. The opening scene where he leaves his wife to die. So it's the most realistic thing in the franchise.
Yeah.
I've seen how people acted during COVID when you sneeze in a Costco.
Oh, yeah.
You think they're going to hold the door for you during a rage virus outbreak? Like, even if they know you?
Well, the thing that makes it easier for him or to make that decision is... she went back for the kid that wasn't really, just that they just found. So
yeah,
I think if you're like, come on, let's go. And you're like, no, hold on. All right, bye. I can understand that too.
Yeah, I gave you a shot. I gave you, you made a bad choice and now you want me to suffer because of it. It's tough, but it's a tough call. It's like, am I supposed to go in there and try to save you and probably die? You're running percentages in your head.
Yeah.
It's like a fantasy baseball league. You've got all these spreadsheets and stats going back and forth. Like, well, what are the odds I'm going to make it out of this versus the two of us? But yeah, he gets out of there and then he just books it.
Yeah.
Which is a great
I mean,
scene.
I would at least tell my kids, hey, I booked it. Mom was gone. She was swarmed.
Yeah.
I just thought about
flaw.
you guys. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's the flaw is, she tried to save a kid. At least say she tried to save a kid and she died during that.
That's true. Yeah.
And, at least leave it at that. Not that I couldn't do anything for her. Just she tried to save a kid. It was altruistic.
Yeah.
The zombies swarmed her in the room and I had to leave. And I couldn't get back there.
What did you get out of this, the second one? What was the overall theme about what went down? Because I always felt, and I had the problems I had with the newer one too, was the kind of, I guess the overarching theme of everything. I mean, what I got out of it was that there are still, or there's a connection even when you still have the rage virus, that there's some sort of connection that you have. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of lost with that second one. Do you have any kind of theory about that? Or
yeah, I think it did start to build on that. These aren't zombies that have turned off and now turned back on and only have their basic primal needs to be met. These rage-inflicted people are still people, and that's a big part of the third movie. Yeah. So I think it started that in the second one where it's like, they can kind of recognize people that they've known before. Like they can kind of understand that sort of thing. Yeah. But it's through the veil of rage, and so it takes a lot to kind of pull through that.
Yeah. That's what I kind of got
also,
too.
And also, we fuck shit up a lot. Right? Like we take the position of let's just, blow it up. Just people can be casualties. That's fine. It's just numbers.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the way, as humans, we think a lot to try to just save everybody else.
I didn't realize that Jeremy Renner was in that movie too. And, the way that they both, her and Rose, was it Rose Byrne or? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way they go out, I don't understand how she went out. Was she getting beat by a gun? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was in the subway. Right?
Yeah,
When they were doing that.
And I don't know, was he out of ammo on that gun? Because I think she should have taken point instead of trying to guide the children. No, go there. I would have been like, here, get behind me. Mm-hmm. Just hung on to me. And I don't know.
Let's conga our way through this mess.
Yeah. I mean, and then she falls down, but she's just it was just hard. I think it's with the editing and the kind of the way it was shot. For me, it was kind of jarring at times, and that was one of them. Was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I guess she died. I guess she got beat or something with her gun, but yeah.
Well, it's okay. Harold Perrineau swoops in at the end. who was in everything during this time. He was in like every movie possible.
Yeah, he was in the Matrix sequels, right?
So he comes in with the helicopter, saves the kids. But then, so one thing they don't carry over is the very end, they show Paris.
Yeah.
Right? And so
The
they
fall
don't.
of Paris, yeah.
The fall of Paris. And I don't think they carry forward with that because in the new movie, it's just the British Isles that are overtaken.
So what goes, then they fly away in the helicopter. Then they show the helicopter empty. I didn't get that montage at all.
Yeah, I don't know where they flew to, and did they crash somewhere?
Yeah, that's what I was unsure of.
What happened with it? And then it just cuts to Paris.
Yeah,
there's these infected in Paris now.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the movie was kind of scatterbrained a little bit. I liked it, but it didn't really fit the overall aesthetic into kind of what now seeing the new one. Yeah, it was just kind of, I had fun in it with it, but it was just too jarring at times. And yeah, that Robert Carlyle was just, God, he was, it's funny to see how they can turn somebody into such a wormy, swarmy dude just by showing that one decision he makes at the beginning. And instead of taking accountability, he just keeps going with it. And it's just, dude, come on.
Yeah, just that one part in a movie can then tweak your perception of them for the rest of the film. He couldn't have done anything past that point, unless he gave himself up to save his kids or something like that in the story. Other than that, there was nothing was gonna save him.
And he purposefully gave himself the virus, right? Because he hate himself, or did he just love his wife so much? That was another thing. I was like,
Yeah, that was a stretch because I feel like at this point it's 28 months later, so we're talking over 2 years. People know what goes on with this virus,
right?
But she's not really showing the signs of the rage part of it,
right.
So and nobody had really seen that before, so maybe didn't understand it. It was like she's still she's just in shock. She's not infected.
Yeah, but
I probably should have known.
Yeah, because I mean he has his kids. I mean it was just like that was the stupidest thing. But anyways.
Yeah, so not a solid movie. It's got its moments, its explosions, but I love movies like that with that kind of setup and that environment. That hey, we're trying to get stuff back together, and get stuff working again. And look at us, we're so great. And then it's like, it's Dikembe Mutombo smashing down a box of cereal. It's there's you got your hubris is now going to turn against you, and things are just going to get even worse.
Well, I think the thing with these movies also is that they have such great casts and they're not safe. Jeremy Renner goes out a blaze of glory, pun intended, and Rose Byrne kind of goes out as well. You would think actors of this caliber would kind of play the hero or kind of play like a secondary character that survives. Nope. And I think that carries on with the first one with Brendan Gleeson too. I thought he was going to be more of a story point or more of an anchor of the story, and no, so I think it carries on in this next one too as well. And so that's my point.
So on to 28 years later, and we're back to bleak landscapes and deeply uncomfortable truths. But this time, we've aged with the virus. It's more thoughtful, it's more brutal, and it's just as emotionally gutting as you'd hope for Boyle coming back to the franchise.
What did you think? I'm interested in hearing what you thought about this movie.
I enjoyed it a lot. It felt like a whole story, even if you kind of didn't know the other two movies.
Yeah.
It kind of explained everything, but not in a way that was pandering to the people that had the knowledge. I didn't feel like it was over-explaining things for a new crowd.
Yeah.
But it was getting the information out there. I enjoyed the character-driven aspect of it. I enjoyed the acting in it. I thought was really good.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was kind of a complete story. I like anything to do with a child like that in the apocalypse, because you already feel scared for them just because of them being a child. They don't know what to do. They don't have the capabilities or the resources to do what they need to survive. So you're learning as long as they're learning, but you're already on your heels because it's a kid.
Yeah. Well, I think that was, for me, that's always such a touchy thing to have kids in movies. I'll point out 2 examples. I have War of the Worlds and The Day the Earth Stood Still, the remake with Keanu Reeves. It's really hard sometimes for me anyways, to kind of give, I'll give empathy to a kid if he's going through something, or that it's a kind of ridiculous situation that he has to kind of figure out. I think it can go wrong. I mean, with me, War of the Worlds, oh my God, I was like, Tom, just leave your kids behind. They're annoying. I mean, they can annoy me and take me out of the movie. Same with Day the Earth Stood Still. This movie, I mean, he was amazing. What's his name? Alfie Williams. Fantastic. It didn't take me out. He hit all of his beats. He was very realistic in the way he reacted to things, and yeah, he didn't take me out of the movie at all. In fact, I think he's one of the bright spots of the movie for me, anyways. I thought there was a lot of good ideas in this movie. I think in the first act, I loved. There's such a great themes, I guess, of coming of age and that kind of thing. They say it in Superman, or Jor-El says it in Superman 1, where the son becomes the father and the father becomes the son. I think that's kind of this movie in as a whole. It was just great. I mean, I think after the first act, though, there's a lot of things that I just couldn't kind of get behind, or there was ideas and kind of things like the alpha. I would have loved to have kind of seen maybe a little more, not a lot more, but a little more of that.
Oh, you saw a lot of that.
I did. And then the doctor scene, was it Ralph Fiennes? And, his character is so interesting. I thought when it hit that scene, I would have loved more of that, maybe of what he's been doing. I mean, again, not a lot more, not to where that's kind of pandering to the audience of well, first I did this and then I did this, but just, I mean, it was just a little too little of him. And, Alex Garland is always, with his movies, he's always tackling these really strong subjects. I think he's kind of constrained by the genre in this one, because I think there was a lot of good ideas, the idea of death and life and those kind of things that weren't really fleshed out too much. But, it was a great movie. I mean, I left the movie theater just thinking, yeah, it was okay. Mm-hmm. If I'll recommend it, but I don't think I'm going to go see it again. But yeah, I think that was my overall opinion of it.
I like that in the sense that you're talking about, Tom Cruise and just leave your kids, you know what I mean? In the apocalypse.
I'm being facetious, but yeah.
But I feel like it was shown here with the dad and his wife having some sort of disease. Yeah. And him not trying to find help for her or anything like that. It was kind of him leaving her behind, him hooking up with another villager. He, in a sense, was leaving her behind. He was just leaving her there, not to improve her being, not to even try.
Well, yeah.
And that goes back to, what would people do in that situation? What did Robert Carlyle do? He left his wife. He didn't do everything he could to try to save her. He just moved on, and that's what the dad was doing.
Yeah, I think that was the kind of, the act that kind of sends him off, the end of Act 1, so to speak. Because I think that, Spike is what the son's name is. He realizes a lot of the things. I think for me, I didn't realize until later in life, a lot later in life, but that, the world isn't what your dad is telling you it is, or he's finding out all these things that, I think, because I knew that it was a cancer. I didn't know what it was at the beginning. I was like, oh, it sounds like she's maybe have a brain tumor or something. And it was this idea that everybody knows, but no one's telling me anything. Everybody's lying to me, and just tell me the truth. All I want is the truth, just tell me. And I think that's what kind of spurs the story along, which I like. I thought that was great. I think up until then. So then he takes his mom to go find the doctor. And I think that was powerful, and that was great. I love that first act because it was set up. I thought the movie was going to be longer, and at the end they were going to run back. But when they made it back, at the end of the first act, I was like, "Oh shit!" Then what's the story? Then I was kind of compelled, but then there's some stuff that happens along the way that just kind of it kind of takes me out a little bit, especially when they meet that soldier guy. There's no sense of urgency in any of those scenes. I mean, it just seems like they're just, let's take a rest out in the open of this big field, where it's like, I don't know. It just didn't seem like there was any sense of urgency at all. And, I understand that they're tired. It's a long walk and all that, but you got to be stealthy. This is a thing where you can't really take all that many breaks. If you do, it's a little short, maybe a half-hour break, and then we're off. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But up until that first act was great. I loved that first act.
And I did like the relationship with the mother and Spike, feeling like it was his calling to help her. He's like, I don't have a choice here. I have to take her out. But once they did get to the doctor, it felt like it was a very quick turn of her to saying, okay, take me out. I would have liked to have seen, like a little bit more of her being a burden to him out in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might have made that feel a little more ready. But she was fine out there with him. She had a pause, a little bit, but that was fine. They pause and then some zombies show up and then they have to run off. But that's going to happen anytime you pause, right?
Right.
You stop for a picnic and the zombies are going to eventually find you.
Yeah. That's what I did when they were out on that open field. It was a great shot. But I mean, I think you can't make a great shot at the expense of the movie, because it's like, go against the trees or something, or go find some out in the open. It's just, I don't know. That was just crazy to me. But you're right. I mean, I think that was part of the great thing of their journey was kind of showing. It hinted at the burden of her being a burden, because they were like, but it was only a day, right? It was only a day and a half, maybe, till they got to the doctor. So, I mean, I agree with you, man. I would have liked to have seen a little more of and the idea that they, spoiler alert, the idea that she took out one of the slug crazy, and then, it just didn't make sense to me, but, whatever.
And even right there, like she wasn't. I know she didn't remember that, but she wasn't a burden. She, if in fact she did that to protect her son, she clearly wasn't as big of a burden, and it felt like she could have probably just stayed with the doctor, maybe if he was going off somewhere else at least a little bit. But so that felt a little fast, and a little rushed to me. Yeah,
I totally agree with you on that. That was then I wrote down on my notes was that it was like, no, she has cancer. Okay, let's go, and that was just.
Yeah, she said it was waves, and now it feels like tide's coming in, and it's like, okay, I get that you can kind of put yourself at the place where you're like, I've had enough. I don't want to see how this turns out.
Yeah,
but it did feel like and maybe she had been feeling that way for longer.
Yeah,
when she was just lying in her bed. But you would think that being out in the real world, that she would have given a little more time, especially with the little new baby now.
Yeah,
and so it's interesting that they. First off, now not only do we have an alpha with a giant schlong, we now have to picture him impregnating other infected people.
I mean, I was speechless. I'm gonna wake up tonight going, "Oh, that giant dong." But no, it was the idea that they're procreating. I guess it makes sense because they can do everything else and they're just mad all the time. So I mean, But another thing that really kind of took me out was the birth scene too of that baby, and not that it was unbelievable because we were talking about a virus movie, rage virus movie, but just the idea that there's all this blood around, and who knows if she has an open cut on her fingers or some a little flies in her mouth or in her eye or something. I mean, there's that scene where he kills one and the blood gets on her forehead and he's just freaking out. Like, oh, don't blink. And the idea that she's delivering this baby and she just doesn't get infected or anything like that just kind of took me out again. And, the addition of that Navy guy from, what was this, Sweden, Holland? I can't remember where he's from. And it just reminded me, they need people, they need filler people, they need people to kill. So they have to meet up with, this random dude, because I thought he was going to be the one that kind of got him to the doctor safe. Again, subverted my expectation of what these characters are. And in the end, you realize, they just need filler people to kill, And the way they killed him, man, that was great. I love that. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a Mortal Kombat finishing move.
Yeah,
right?
that's what
the
say.
alpha
Yeah,
really
finish
is.
him!
Just pull the spine out, attached to the head. I do like, the military guy as a character and
Yeah.
what they were showing there, right? Because they're showing different people dropped into this environment. This guy, his whole life is fine. He's just in the military. He just signed up to be in the military. And it's just this one little spot in the world that has this problem going on.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Yeah,
And the rest of the world isn't willing to help any more than make sure it doesn't get out.
yeah,
Probably partially because when the world did try to help before, everything just went awry, and they were like, "We're not, fool me once, shame on you," scenario. But he was there to show that, everybody else, this is just a thing they see on the news once in a while.
Well, to show that, and to show his phone and his pictures, and to show that life is just still going, and then this little village or this area of the world, they're completely shut out. He's talking about phones. What's that? And it's a delivery driver. What's that? And what's Amazon or whatever. And so this idea that life is going and they're still stuck in the Stone Ages practically. I mean, that kind of, I want to say it's some sort of political thing too that's added in. I don't know what that is. I'm not a political guy, so I don't know, but I feel like it has something to do politically about what Europe is doing and all that. But yeah, it's a really kind of fine touch that they put. And Alex Garland, I think, does that really well. And it just doesn't, there's just not enough of that, I think, a little bit. Again, I don't need like a whole backstory, but I would just love to see that contrast, I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, you have on one hand, you have all these, these people whose girlfriends are getting lip filler. Clearly still on one side of the planet. And then on their side of the planet, you've got Spike, who's getting chased by Primal Rage Tommy Lee looking to drive his boat. If they could have made the Primal guy's wiener talk like they did in that Tommy Lee movie, that would have, chef's kiss. That would have been amazing. But yeah, they just don't make movies like that.
I'm just
they do, but you
that.
have to pay extra for them,
right.
And you have to go behind a curtain in a video store to get them.
Another point about this movie is the way that they filmed it. It's this big hoopla about the iPhone 15 Pro Max, kind of making it sound like they're out there with just iPhones and cut, but the idea, I mean, I've seen a picture of their rig, of the iPhone rig, and it's just like, $100,000 lenses on there, and it's just a whole.
It's like 30 of them in a semicircle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and they have bullet time in this too to kind of do some kills, it was cool. I thought that was great. And so I mean, it's in a 2.76 to 1 ratio too, which is a little wider than the 2.24. So you get a lot of those wide shots of them like walking across the beach or from up high. They have a lot of drone shots, and I thought the cinematography was great in this. I couldn't really tell. There was some low light stuff that I could tell, like from a filmmaker's point of view, that it was filmed on a phone. But for the most part, it was beautifully shot. What did you think about how it was shot?
Yeah, it was very true to the first movie.
Yeah,
and a lot of the framing and that sort of stuff. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
It did stay somewhat true to it, which is hard to do nowadays. That the people would just be like, nope, let's just make another Hollywood movie. But you just add in those little aspects is great. Though, like you said, it's not as primal on the photography as they'd like you to think. Yeah.
Because I think that was the big sell was he's going to shoot it on iPhones, and it's like all right, cut. Oh yeah, well, it's not that, but I mean. It kind of gives you, or it gives me at least, the idea that because they were saying that about the Pro Max 14, which is what I have, but you have to buy the biggest one with the most storage, and so it's about $1,500-$1,600 for a phone, and it's just like, eesh, I have problems paying $700 for a phone, so. So I mean, it was great. Go ahead.
So let's talk about the world they created and the ending of it. you start off the movie seeing, kids right at the beginning of the epidemic happening, watching Teletubbies on old school TV, taking you back to, 28 years ago. And you see one kid, escape, where you assume that one kid escapes, little boy. And at the end of this movie, you see that boy as an adult, a quote unquote adult. And it's interesting to see him interact with Spike. And I think that's what the next movie will be all about.
Yeah.
Two kind of kids that grew up during it, but differently.
Yeah.
One remembering the old ways and not having a childhood, and then one growing up inside of it, actually having a childhood.
That's interesting. I never thought of it. And what I just thought when you were saying that was like the difference of us and kids nowadays. We grew up without the internet, and we know the old ways. And now, like, your kid probably just grew up in this internet age where they have all this stuff. And I think the reason why that there's still kind of, I don't know what to call it, but there's this kind of disconnect, I guess. It's just because they don't remember what it was like to use a rotary phone, or to, use VCRs as the main thing, and having video stores and skateboards, staying out until, it's dark. So, yeah, that just came to mind when you were just saying that.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the character from the beginning, Jimmy.
Yeah,
because he shows up and it's very abrupt. It feels like you're like, am I watching, The Warriors right now, or Clockwork Orange? Like, it feels like you're jumping into a different type of movie, because they're doing backflips and killing infected people with pipes or golf clubs, or just, creative ways.
Yeah.
And it's like he treats it differently than Spike does, right? Spike has always been raised to be wary of these people, be careful, be cautious. And then Jimmy comes into it like that. Yeah. And he's just trying to pull off trick shots.
Yeah. Admittedly, it really took me out. Like the first, I don't know, a couple seconds of that, especially when they were like doing the somersaults and everything, the flips. But, it took a lot of people. I was looking at some reviews, and it was like, they were like, oh my God, it just changes the tone of the story. But I think that if you go back to some of Danny Boyle's early movies, they were kind of silly. The one that comes to mind, or there's two. This one kind of reminds me of The Beach. I don't know if you ever saw The Beach. It was his first collaboration with Alex Garland. And it came out in 2000, I think. And it was with Leonardo DiCaprio. But it kind of is this Lord of the Flies feel to it, but it has, I don't know, you should watch it. But then the silliness at the end reminds me of that movie, A Life Less Ordinary. Have you ever seen that movie? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that movie was silly. You have angels, you have guardian angels and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's, it's not really that far removed from a lot of what he's done. And like I said, at first it kind of took me out, but then as I realized, oh, this is Danny Boyle. This is kind of what he does. It's kind of a mix of Guy Ritchie and a Danny Boyle film, So at first it was kind of like, what is this? And then I was like, okay, I kind of went with it, and it was kind of fun.
Well, coming into it not knowing that it's planned as its own kind of trilogy, and that they filmed this movie and the next movie, I didn't know that back to back. Like, once I saw that, I went, okay, this makes sense, because you take that last 4 minutes, you could have cut it off with Spike just cooking a fish, right? And the infected coming towards him, and just cut off and gone to an 80s song, an 80s rock ballad, just to play you out. But with knowing that it is gonna just tie right in, it's kind of like just an intermissionary point there, and I got thrown off because I said the word missionary, and my brain went, missionary. That's funny.
Well, I think I didn't know that they were going to make a movie. I didn't know they were making a trilogy. I thought this was just the end of it. They were like, okay, fine, let's make this, get it out of the way. I didn't know they were making 2 more, and the other one's going to come out, in January? That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's next year, so it's pretty recent. And I think we've talked about this before. I love when they film stuff back to back.
Yeah.
When they have a plan, at least get partway there all at once. It's more likely that they're going to get to the finish line, right? Even if they record just 2 of them at the same time, then there's a better shot they're going to get to that third movie and finish it up.
Well, it sets the tone, and then you're guaranteed that it's going to be connected. Now, it may have a different tone, but it's going to be more, I don't know what the word is, but it's just going to have those bones of the first
More
one.
like cohesion.
You know? Yeah. There
Tying
you go.
it together.
So no matter what the second one is, it's, you know, that it's tied to the first one and you can see it. So it's, yeah, cohesion's a good word.
My favorite 2000s band, Cohesion and Cambria. So yeah, it's you know, it'll be interesting to see how they do the next movie, and you know, especially when you're filming with kids, right? We've all seen Stranger Things and Stranger Things syndrome, where it's now they're on, you know, the finale, and you know they all got full beards, they all have
playing
mortgages.
17-year-olds.
Yeah. So it's good to see that they plan ahead in something like this, and that the studio actually lets them do that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times it's
That's
well, we'll film
point.
this one, and then, you know, if it does well, then we'll pick it up for more. But by that time, the machine's already moving. People are already doing other acting things. They're not just sitting there waiting for the next season to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think you kind of play yourself out of, is that what you said? You kind of play yourself out of the series, basically, because you're waiting so long in between seasons. And I think that's, you know, you look at House of Dragon and it's like, man, this whole, I think we talked about it, where like a whole season's just building up to something. And then you're like, okay, they better do it this season. And they don't. And it's like, so it's like 4 years that I've been invested in this thing that, you know, yeah. So,
yeah, it's always good when they have that end point and the studio has kind of signed on for it, and you know that it's going to happen. They're putting it all together now, and it's just kind of sitting there waiting on a shelf, waiting for its release date. That,
I mean, it's like
makes me
the
feel
guy
better.
that's doing the new Batman. What's his name? Matt Reeves. It's like, do you think George Lucas was sitting around going, you know what? I'm just not feeling it right now. We got to hold off on Empire Strikes Back because I'm just not feeling it. It's like, no, dude, this is, you know, I don't know. I've been read the Riot Act so many times at my jobs that it's just been like, come on, man. You know, this is you're getting paid all this money. You gotta keep going. You know, you can't just be like, I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Being paid to take a stab at it. Take a stab at it. Like that's, you know, you got to take a stab at it and give it your best, and it could sit there forever, the next Batman, and you just, it never happens because you just didn't take a stab.
And it just becomes all this potential, and you're like, you had us for like 2 years. And then when it went to 3 and 4, all right, I'm out. Go watch Superman.
Yeah.
Which we're going to do.
Which we will do in the upcoming weeks here. But yeah, that's you know, the current trilogy of 28 days, weeks, days, months, years.
Yeah.
They skipped weeks. That would have been a little too soon.
Well, they
28 months later, Steve. What's your view on lavender satchels? I didn't get to throw that in
They
earlier.
do 28 weeks later at the epilogue, when he's filming the epilogue of this movie. Doesn't it say 28 weeks later? And then it goes to him. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So this one, or is it 28 days at the end? Which I don't know.
Is it 28 days? Maybe it's 28 days. Yeah, it's 20.
Let us know in the comments.
Yes.
If you go see it, update us on there. Was it 28 weeks? Was it 28 days? We could Google it, but we're going to wait for you to tell us.
Yes. This is audience participation is a must.
Yeah, this is the part of it. So it's, you know, it's whether it's a quiet horror of London's empty streets, the chaos of a firebomb city, or the slow suffocation of generational trauma. This series is proving that Fast Infected still have plenty to say, along with their non-talking appendixes. So thanks for joining us on whatever this is called. If you like the show, tell a friend, like, comment, subscribe, all the social stuff. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, Scott.